All right.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Kenzie, and I'm an assistant of accreditation here at WAQRR. And then my other presenters and team is going to be Brianna Yoakum, and she's the director of accreditation. And then Sarah Carr is the other assistant of accreditation as well. Today, we are going to be discussing or kind of going over the application process. And so to start here, we're just going to kind of ask everybody to unmute, let us know who you are, what organization you're with, and where you are at in the application process. Stephen, do you want to go ahead and start?
Sure. Hi, my name is Steve Jones. I'm the housing coordinator for Trinity Transitional Housing. We currently have 5 accredited houses with Walker. Have gone through the process, but it's always nice to gather new information.
Yeah. Hi, Steve.
Hi.
Sam, you want to go ahead and go next? You look like you're somewhere fun.
Yes, I'm Sam got a good house. Just finished the paperwork part of the application and I'm waiting for the interview. And that's as far as I have.
Thanks, Sam.
Next up here, I think that's David. David, I don't want to mispronounce your last name, so if you could help me out there. David Z.
Yeah, David Zakura. I'm from Walla Walla, Washington, and I work at Trilogy Recovery Community. Sorry, I didn't catch what you guys were asking the question.
And then the last question, just where are you at in your application process?
Oh, I'm not in the application process right now, just learning.
Okay.
Yeah.
David, you said you're from Trinity?
Trilogy Recovery Community.
Trilogy.
Walla Walla.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trilogy. Great.
Brandon, have you gone yet? Brandon Starkey?
How's it going? My name is Brandon Starkey. I'm located in Southern California. I'm actually opening up 2 houses in Tacoma, Washington. I have 1 house here in Southern California. The name of our organization is Elevate Recovery. The house we have in Southern California is Revive Recovery. And in the process of just getting started. So me and my partner actually wanted to hop on here to start figuring out the process of how to apply and what to get done.
Great.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Up here next, I have Becky Smith.
Hi, I am Becky. I am over in Spokane, Washington. My application process, I am still in the process of filling it out, and I don't have a house yet. I am working on getting the funding for that. So, yeah, I'm filling out the application and trying to make sure I have everything worded correctly and everything is met in your criteria. Studied it pretty well so far. My agency will be Breaking Barriers with Becky. That's what the business license says anyway. So that's what we're going to do.
Love it.
Nice.
Laura Mullins. Darcy Leary.
Hi, Darcy here with Joyce House Foundation. I don't have a house yet, so I'm just getting ready to learn about the application process and make sure that all of my policies and procedures are in place.
Great. Oh,
And then Leah Zoller.
Good morning. I'm Leah. I am the Director of Recovery Services for the STAR project in Walla Walla. We have 2 reentry houses here, and I oversee the housing processes. I think that we started the application process last year, and then we had some administration changes, so I'm not quite sure where we're at with everything, but we're working on getting back into business here.
great.
Let's see, we had a couple more join us here. So David Gallen.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I guess this is my first time. I'm not sure what the application process is, but I'm searching all over to try to figure out how to open up a recovery home of some sort in Kelso, Washington.
Oh,
which
Great.
is between Vancouver and Tacoma about. And yeah, I have a house, pretty big one, and I'd really like to open one up. And but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Still kind of figuring out how to get it to work if it's possible here in this area.
Mhm.
Sure. Great.
And next I have Darren. Darren, I don't want to mispronounce your last name, so if you could help me out with that. Darren P.
Yeah, good morning. Darren Paskey. I'm with the HCA. I work with a lot of providers who are WAQRR certified, so I wanted to get to know a little bit more information of what they have and how maybe some of these requirements that they have might align to our evidence-based practices through the foundational community support. So just kind of interested a little bit more on the back end
Mhm.
of WAQRR certification, how the process works.
Great. Thank you.
Next we have Erica D. Denny, maybe?
Hi, Erica Dennehy.
Dennehy.
I work at a behavioral health agency and just kind of looking to see what the application process would look like. So haven't started anything, just wanting to learn a little bit more. That's why I'm attending today.
Great.
I have a big group here, so if I missed you, I apologize. You're more than welcome to unmute and go ahead and just introduce yourself. Again, you know, your organization and then where you are at in your application process. Anybody else? Okay, we will move on here. So just kind of what today is going to be about, you know, our session overview. So we're going to do a website tour and then the application tour just to kind of give you an idea of where to go, how to access things, and where to click. And then we'll go over the WAQRR writing guides, the key components of each guide. We'll give you some examples of the policies, policy development process, and then we'll end with best practices and tips, and then questions and answers for you guys as well. Anybody have any questions as of right now?
Yeah, I would like to hear from the group if you want to put it in the chat. What out of those agenda items are you most interested in? Maybe just one or two. We could
Application, like getting started on the application.
Yeah. Okay.
The writing guides and the key components of each guide.
Yeah. 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 We're excited to share that with you too.
Looks
Policy
like in the
development.
chat we have a couple of people about the
Policy.
policies and the policy development as well.
Great. Well, if any questions come up along the way, feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat. But with that, get started. So I'm going to just give a quick overview of WAQRR. I'm not going to get too in depth here, but just wanted to give you a little history of what we do at WAQRR. So we call ourselves WAQRR, but we stand for the Washington Alliance for Quality Recovery Residences. And we are a nonprofit dedicated to promoting high quality recovery homes across Washington state. We are the state affiliate of NAR, which is the National Alliance for Recovery Residences. And really our mission is to ensure that recovery residences provide safe, supportive environments for their residents through a set of nationally adopted quality standards. So these standards are really rooted in the social model of recovery, which emphasizes peer support, community, and a home-like setting. So the purpose of our quality standards that we use throughout our accreditation process is really to ensure ethical practices and quality care, promote consistency, safety, and accountability. So we do a mini version of the accreditation process each year once you're accredited, and look at your policies again, do an interview, do a site visit again. Sarah's going to touch on in the next slide an overview of our accreditation process in general. But really at the core of it, we want to help you create an environment that is really supportive of sustained recovery. And so our standards really help give you a good guidepost and a blueprint of how to implement it and how to operate in a way that's ethical and aligned with best practices. So gaining accreditation with WAQRR means that you went through this process, and it ensures alignment with our quality standards. It also will get you onto the Healthcare Authority Recovery Residence Registry, so the state registry. And since 2023, only those who have went through the WAQRR accreditation process can make it onto the Healthcare Authority Registry, which then opens up referrals from state licensed agencies. So basically, if it's a Department of Health licensed agency, they are required to only make referrals off that registry, and we're the conduit to get you onto that registry. Oxford Homes, if it's a legitimate Oxford Homes, they're also included on the registry. We also have we have different funding opportunities as well. If you become accredited, we've in the past had recovery resident startup grants, and it's really looking like we're going to have the opportunity to have that again very soon. But today we're really focusing on how to apply for accreditation, and we're going to go over some writing guides to help you meet the standards for policies and procedures to achieve accreditation. We'll walk you through the application. We do have a Recovery Residence 101 scheduled for next month, and that's on our events page. So I'll show you where to go on the events page, but that's about a 4-hour long webinar. So if you're brand new to opening up a recovery residence, that is a really great one to attend to. But again, our main focus today is just going to be on the application and focusing on these writing guides that will help you when you're creating your policies and procedures to meet the minimum standard that we need to see in order to meet that policy for accreditation. So.
And then any like resources that we discussed throughout, we'll send you an email at the end that kind of has like just like a grouping of all those resources. And then if there's any additional ones that you know you guys are needing, you can always reach out to us as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we do technical assistance as well. So if something that you want to meet offline, even with going through the application process, we're more than happy to guide you through that and just take a deeper dive into your organization, your situation, wherever you're at in the process of opening up a recovery residence. We really can help with those aspects as well. I'm going to pass it on to Sarah just to go briefly over our accreditation process.
Yeah, Becky, go ahead. You had a question?
Do you
Yes.
need the business plan to go along with the accreditation at all?
So we don't need to see your business plan, but you do need to be registered with the Secretary of State. So we do need to see those documents specifically. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good morning again. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the WAQRR accreditation process. So here at WAQRR, there are high standards that we uphold. You can visit the WAQRR Quality Standards. I went ahead and put those in the chat. So those are really kind of what make WAQRR who we are, and they're really put in place to help you write your policies. So we always refer back to our quality standards. So yeah, so our mission is to fulfill to promote the establishment, the successful management and growth of high quality community-based recovery residences in Washington State. And so the first step in that accreditation process is the document review. And Bree will go over later on, give you a tour of our website. So the document review is once you've completed an application on our website, you'll just fill out some basic information on your home, and a couple pages in, that you will get to the documents, you will be able to upload your policies and procedures. And those are really, the kind of meat and potatoes of your program. They're a stable guiding light, which you will provide to your residents once they enter your program. You'll have, typically we recommend a resident handbook, which really contains some of your program requirements, the rules of your program, and so forth. So there's a pretty thorough evaluation of those documents once you've submitted your application, where we have a WAQRR contracted document reviewer go through each of your documents and just make sure that those are really aligning with our WAQRR quality standards. And that process, it depends, it can take about a month to really acquire all the documents that meet the standards. There's some back and forth communication between us, just to make sure all your policies are in alignment with our standards. So yeah, it really depends on, how kind of gung-ho sort of say you are with getting started and accredited. So, but once you pass the document review portion, you'll move on to an interview, and it's more just a conversation. Like, we're just trying to gather more on the ground information on how you operate your recovery residents, what supports you are providing your residents, and it just really gives us an opportunity to learn more about you, what your vision is, and yeah, just gather any additional information that wasn't included on your policies and procedures. So that'll be done online through a Teams meeting. And you're welcome. Like, usually we have you as the provider, and if you have like a co-operator with you, you're welcome to attend that as well. So yeah, and once the interview is completed, that takes about hour and a half, give or take. We'll move on to schedule a site visit. And the site visit is just where we have a WAQRR contracted inspector come out to tour your home. They assess the overall safety and security of your home, just making sure that those, physical domain quality standards are being met. Yeah, they just verify the physical and operational standards, making sure your windows are meeting egress. You have Narcan equipped in your home, just basic safety procedures. So that's the final phase of accreditation. And once that is all complete and approved by the accreditation team, you will move forward and gain your accreditation. So any questions around that? We'll dive deeper into that, but.
Yeah, Sarah, this is Darren. I was just wondering, do you guys have something on YouTube that would kind of show a walkthrough to the house to get people
Right.
prepared for that?
So yeah, we do. We don't have like a video of what a site inspection looks like. We do have an inspection checklist. So we can provide you that at any time during the accreditation process. And that's just like a real detailed checklist of what they will be looking at specifically when they tour your home.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, any other questions of the accreditation process? And again, this webinar this morning is really going to be focusing, on the application as well as the writing guides to help get you through that application process to where you feel ready to submit. And then from there, the accreditation process will start and we would do the document review. Okay. I'm not seeing any more. All right. All right. With that, I will actually stop sharing and I'll pull up our web page. So all of the resources I'm going to be discussing is going to be on WAQRR.org. So I'll just kind of share my screen and walk you through the web page as well as the application. So we do have some sample documents and some templates that are available when you start the application process. And so those aren't publicly on our web page. They're just available upon request. But everyone who's here today, we recently just updated it and added some new templates for you. So we will send those to you by the end of the week, along with the specific writing guides we're going to be going over, that you have it as a resource. We just ask that if you utilize the templates, that you know that you personalize it to your program, really self-assess if what's stated in the template is going to fit with your model and with your recovery residents, and then to really know your policies. Instead of just utilizing it just to get a policy written. We really want you to personalize it to your program and make sure it fits with what you're offering. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. It might just take me 1 minute to pull up the website. All right, you all see WAQRR.org?
Yes.
You see my screen? Okay. All right, so here is our webpage. So again, it's www.waqrr.org. Here, I'm just going to show you how to navigate it. So on this button, when you click on it, it will actually pull up listings of all of our accredited recovery residences. So this registry is separate than the Healthcare Authority registry, although it mirrors the same organizations, if that makes sense. They maintain their own registry. We have a separate one that just you're able to personalize a little more. So that is where you'd find all of our accredited recovery residences. This tab is our upcoming events tab. So go ahead and click on that because we do have a lot going on. We have some webinars about creating successful partnerships with landlords. This is actually going over one of our toolkits that WAQRR has developed. And I'll show you where to access that. We're doing another webinar on how to partner with or become a behavioral health agency. We also have a toolkit around that. This is our monthly networking call with our recovery residents operators. You do have to be accredited to join that, but that's been really beneficial just to meet once a month with other operators across the state, just to get, good networking and to really bounce questions off each other about policies or about certain situations. We really have a vast experience. We have some operators who just opened their recovery residences. They're in the first year. And then we have some that have been doing it for 10 or 15 years. So it's really great to see everyone working together when we meet once a month to help each other. Then we're to have another webinar on giving and receiving feedback. Burning bright without burning out. So some habits to prevent burnout. Responding to mania. And then we have our Recovery Residents 101. So this is the webinar I mentioned earlier. If you're brand new to opening up a recovery residence, this is a great one to RSVP for. And we do ongoing professional development once a month. Again, it's open to the public except for the networking call. Here's our quality standards. So Sarah mentioned the quality standards. It's what we use throughout our accreditation process. Recommend even before working on your policies and procedures to to go over and read the quality standards, have it printed out even as you're working on your policy writing, that you could just have it to compare to what you're putting in, as well as our writing guides. This is a link to our the WAQRR levels of care. Just gives you more about different levels. On our More tab, we have recording section. So any ongoing training or development that we host each month, we do try to record it if we're able, have it as a resource. We have webinars on funding your recovery residents. We have webinars on trauma-informed care. We have the Recovery Residents 101 from a few years ago recorded as well. So really great resource, a lot of good information there. We have, I mentioned some of the funding that we've been able to get the past year, about a year ago. The Recovery Residents Grant is currently closed, but we are anticipating opening that up soon. So getting registered on our email list, because that's where we would make the announcements about the Recovery Residents Grant. We do resident funding that we can provide for our accredited operators, and you'll hear more about that towards the end of the accreditation process and what that looks like. If you have any questions, you can definitely reach out. We have Narcan that you can order. We also have a tab for if a resident or a staff wants to submit a grievance incident report. Here's the 2 toolkits that I mentioned that we will be presenting on next month. So now I'm going to travel down. So this is where you're actually going to start your application and log back into your application. And I'm going to skip this for now, and I'm going to come back to it just because I want to show you some of the resources and reading at the bottom that we have available. So here's our events again, right at the bottom. Here's where you would join the mail list that I spoke of, just to stay up to date. We don't spam you or anything. It really is just important updates that we send. The newsletter. And then right here, resources for operators. We just have some reading material that's really beneficial. Our quality standards, our accreditation agreement. This is the standard guide. So if you really want to read about why our quality standards were developed, the standard guide is really helpful of like why we have certain standards and what's the core purpose of having those. Our code of ethics form. So during the application process, you are having all your staff and volunteers sign the WAQRR Code of Ethics. So this is where you would find it. So you click it, print it out, have all your staff read and sign, as well as any incoming staff. Our levels of care link again, guide to fair housing, just some more reading material. Now I'm going to go back up to the start the application page. So if you click learn more, it does give you just a brief overview of the accreditation process. There's a link to our accreditation agreement again, just to give you an overview of what to expect when going through the accreditation process. But when you are ready to apply, you would start the application right here. You'd click on it, then you would create an account. So you can start the application even before you have acquired your home. That is okay. We do ask that you at least be registered with the Secretary of State. The reason being is that's where your application is going to live, under your organization name, your legal organization name. So if you end up changing it later, you'd have to recreate a whole new account. So at least have your Secretary of State designation And then you can go in and start the application. You don't have to have your recovery residence acquired while you work on the application. By the time you submit it even, you don't have to have it, but by the time we get to the site visit process, you will want to have it, and then we'll need to go in and change that address. So you can definitely start the process even before you have the house. So that way you're developing your policies and procedures. You're really starting to think of how you're wanting to run the recovery residence, what safeguards you want to have in place, what accountability mechanisms you want to have for your residents. And we've heard individuals who have went through the process even before opening their home had a really good foundation, because you're learning best practices as you go through the application. You're going through the interview next, and you're again learning more best practices. And so by the time we get to the site visit portion, you feel confident in opening your recovery residence. So when you start the application, you're going to create an account. You can always log back into your account and continue your application later. And to do that, you would scroll down to the middle of the page. So where this says start application, this is where you're going to start it and where you're going to access your previously saved application as well. So when you start it, you're going to get to a page that looks like this. And it's really just collecting some forward-facing information about your organization, about your house, what your house name is. I always recommend with the house name, don't put the address on there. If you want to call it the street name, that's fine, but just for privacy reasons, find a name that doesn't include the actual numbers of the home. And you will then enter your address again. If you don't have your home acquired yet, that's okay. Put your business address, and then we can always change that portion later when you get your home acquired. Then we just ask for some basic house information. So think of these questions as just forward-facing, what you want others to know about your organization. We often pull from this to create your initial listing on our registry. So just think of it in that way. Again, it can be edited later. So you log back in, you can edit it later. Just some financial information anything that you want residents to know. Any additional information here, your capacity, whether it has family spaces available, what gender, substance testing.
Brianna, quick
Yeah.
question. What do you mean by family spaces? Can you define that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. I definitely can.
Thank you.
So, well, we break it down into two different types. So if you do have family spaces available, we will reach out and gather more information so we could know kind of what category to put you in as far as just our internal data of listings. But basically, if they allow children in the home, so it could be we have family homes, which are homes that are just that cater to individual families. So like one family living in a home. And then we have shared family homes where it could be a combination of, individuals living together, unrelated, who also have their children there. So any combination of having family spaces like that with children.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Okay, and the next page is just some basic contact information that we're collecting from you. We will need at least one public phone number and one public email address. Please just verify that your email address is entered correctly, because when you submit your application, that's our first contact point. We will send you an email and let you know next steps, send you an invoice for the membership fees. And so if this email address is entered wrong, it could delay the process a bit. So just double check that. And then any websites or Facebook pages that you have connected. If you don't have a website, we highly recommend that you get one. You want to have at least a landing spot when people look up your organization so that they can contact you. So if that's not something you have currently, we definitely recommend working to get that. The next page is just going to be simply just some questions for you to self-assess. It's okay if all of these aren't going to be yeses at this point in time. By the time you get through the accreditation process, they will all be yeses, but it just gives us a good idea of where you're at currently. The last portion is of this page is the medically assisted treatment aspect. So we actually require WAQRR accredited homes that you accept all forms of prescribed medication, legally prescribed medication, including medications for substance use disorder. So just make sure to have that clicked. That's also a state registry requirement as well. And if there, you know, if you guys need technical assistance at all around that of like how to support medication management within your recovery residences, we're more than willing to dive deeper into that aspect if there's any additional questions around that at some point. All right, so now we're gonna talk about the document section. So this is the section of the application where once you've got all of your policies and procedures incorporated, that you will be uploading them, and then the final step is submission. I just wanted to talk you through this a little bit. So over here on the right-hand side, you're going to see all the areas that are all the policies or documents that we want you to upload for us. And you can see some examples of how that would look. So for example, this is showing if you have a handbook and it's incorporating all of these policies in the handbook. It doesn't have to be that format. I mean, maybe you already have your policies and procedures developed and you don't have it all lumped together in one handbook. That's okay, as long as there's still the policies that are given to residents or resident facing. It could be in whatever format you already have it. If you are starting from scratch, we've seen building it into a handbook is just really convenient because you can have all the resident facing policies developed and you just print it out upon, you know, when you're in contact with that resident and then upon intake as well. So whatever format you have it, but we just want you to drag these over so that you could let us know where to find the policy in what document. And when you are done, you will have all of these checked off. Won't let you go to the next page until you have them checked off. The writing guides we're going to be going over today will incorporate, and I just put for visual, all of these in the resident handbook. Oh, all of these in the resident handbook. Oh, I kind of messed them up a little bit, but basically this amount of policies you guys will be able to, hopefully when you utilize the guides, develop them, you'll have those covered, and then there'll just be some additional policies that we will need to see in the application, like legal documents, resident application, insurance, things like that. So that's the whole guide, the whole goal of the writing guides that we will be talking about. You click on these, they do give you more information, a little bit more information, or they'll reference a quality standard. And then our writing guides will even break it down even more. And then the last step would be clicking next section and hitting that your application is ready to be reviewed and submitting it. And then we would get notification and then reach out, you know, confirm submission, let you know next steps, have any additional questions, and then send you an invoice. Once the invoice is paid for the membership fee, then we will start the document review process. And then that document review process that Sarah was talking about, it could be a lot of back and forth between us, because we will send you an initial report that we are looking over all the policies and procedures in accordance to our standard. It could be that you have the policy and it meets 90% of it, but it's just missing one aspect that we need incorporated. And so that's what the whole document review process is for, is just to let you know what ones need a little bit more revision to meet the full policy, which ones are perhaps missing. And then once you've met all those areas from the document review report that you've resubmitted, then again, we would move on to the interview portion. So that is the application process in a nutshell. You could see it's not super intense, but we do need to see all of these documents uploaded for the document review process. Any questions as of now? The
Yeah, and
application.
something else I wanted to add. If you are adding multiple homes, you don't need to create like an entirely new application where you're re-uploading all your policies, procedures. If they're following your original, you would just send us some basic information through an email. But yeah, if you're just doing one home, this is the process you do. But if you're adding additional homes, we have a separate condensed version of this. So just wanted to add that.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Any other
Don't
questions?
overwhelm yourselves, because like you guys can always do some of it, save it, and come back. You don't, once you're in the document section, you don't have to do it all at once. So you can break it down, you know, work on each policy as you go, and kind of just make it easier on you, and so you don't miss anything, and things are, you know, up to your guys' standards as well for your organization.
Yeah, and it can feel kind of daunting. Like we don't want this to be like a, you know, this is supposed to be your program. Like you're using your creativity and your vision for creating your program. So, you know, take your time. It's, you know, not a rush. We're here to make, you know, this a collaborative journey with you and to help support you with getting accredited. So.
And I couldn't remember if it was you or Sarah or Bree, but they did also mention about the TA. So if you're in the middle of it and you get stuck or you have additional questions, you can always reach out to us by phone or email and set up a second, like kind of like a Zoom meeting like this, and just ask your questions. Hey, does this make sense? Is this the right process? Is there any additional, you know, information you can give or examples to kind of help you out? So don't feel stuck and don't feel like we're not here to help, because we're just, you know, an email away.
Yeah, our whole goal is to if you're at a point brand new or even applying and don't know how to meet the standards, our whole goal is to get you there. So we will definitely work with you as much as you're willing to work with us to get you to meet the quality standards. And again, as it's your program, but we just have to see certain policies and procedures in place.
I think Brandon had a question about our emails. At the end of this, Brandon will be able to send you a couple resources, links, and things that we talk about throughout the webinar. And then in the bottom of it, we'll also attach all of our email addresses as well for you to reach out to any of us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, with that, I mentioned the writing guides, so let's talk about them. Again, the writing guides, the full guides, we will send via email along with some of the sample template resources. So we've just re-updated, we've had these writing guides before, but we've re-updated them just recently. So they will be on our webpage as well. You guys are just the first to have this training and to take a peek at our new revised writing guides. And they're really just here for your benefit to make the process go a lot smoother. So we will send those out by the end of the week as well as with those templates, but we will be taking some examples from them so that you could learn how to read them and put them into practice. So the first is the Organizational Policies and Procedures Guide. So this guide is designed for your staff and your volunteers. So this guide will help you create policies that outline staff-directed policies like staff roles, staff financial boundaries. And this guide is really the minimum policies that WAQRR needs to see as staff-directed policies in order to meet the WAQRR standards. So it really gives you a great starting point to then further develop in the future. Let's say you already have a staff, organizational handbook, staff policies and procedures. You can utilize the guide as a checklist to actually make sure that the policies we need to see for accreditation are incorporated in your already established handbook. So it can be used both ways. The second guide is the resident intake and orientation packet, which is for your residents. So this one lays out clear expectations like house rules, fees, and medication policies. So residents know exactly what to expect before they move in and while living in your home. So it's also about protecting both residents and your organization by just being transparent and getting signed agreements. Both guides are a great resource for accreditation because they really give you that guidepost on what to incorporate. Because you've seen from the application, it tells you the policies we need. The writing guides will really break it down even further of what core aspects we need to see in each policy. You'll notice that some policies like mission and vision statement appear in both guides, so some do have overlap. So here is a sample of a policy from the writing guide. I'm really showing this to you just to show you how to use it. So both the organizational and resident guides are structured to make your policy writing clear. So each section is tied to a specific WAQRR quality standard. So that way you know which standard your policy is addressing. And then within each section, there are 4 key components of it. So the policy name, so for this example, is the prohibited item searches for standard 16B. This tells you what policy you're working on and which policy you're writing. Second is the requirement, and this outlines the core expectation. So in this case, it would be outlining prohibited items for staff searches. The last portion, or the second to last portion, is the evaluation criteria. And so this really evaluates the compliance of the standard. So for this case, we're including what are the prohibited items, the procedures for conducting searches, the protocol for handling prohibited items if they're discovered, and then the identification of the individuals authorized to search belongings. So it's really crucial to focus on the evaluation criteria when doing your policy writing to ensure that all the elements are present. So if any element is missing, we will mark it as non-compliant during the document review, and you'll need to revise the policy to incorporate that missing information. So for example, say you submit a policy to us that includes 1 through 3, but you forget to incorporate number 4, that will get flagged during the document review, and that will be listed as required of having to revise your prohibited items policy to include the procedure on who is allowed to search for belongings. So it's crucial to just read it really thoroughly and make sure that all those areas are incorporated to meet the minimum standard. Doesn't mean that's all you have to write, but to at least hit those core evaluation criteria. Any questions on any of it? Oh, the guidance, I didn't touch on that. The guidance is just helpful tips for policy implementation. So for this one, it says list all prohibited items. And then it says outline search procedures and train staff on consistent, fair enforcement. So it's just helpful tips towards the bottom on how to implement it or writing the policy. I don't have the chat up. Was there any questions around this? Okay, if not, we're going to be diving into it more. So, okay, so now we're going to talk a little more in depth about the organizational writing guide. So this again will help you in your policy writing. The purpose of this guide is to provide the minimum set of staff directed policies required to meet WAQRR Quality Standards. So this is really ensuring that your staff and volunteers operate ethically and maintain a safe, supportive environment for your residents. So the guide includes a checklist of required policies, and this could be found on page 4 when you guys get the guides. But like mission vision, there's a non-discrimination, there's a grievance policy, role descriptions, ongoing staff development policy. And so you would utilize that as a checklist to make sure you've incorporated them into your application, into your policies and procedures. So for example, the role descriptions of staff will actually outline what each staff member does, and the ongoing staff development policy will ensure that your team is continually provided with training. Again, there might be some overlap policies of the resident guide and the organizational guide, but really the focus here is that it's staff directed. So you might even go into more depth your policies rather than what you did in the resident guide. So this is a good starting point, like I said, for covering the minimum staff directed policies needed for accreditation, but you can go further with this, and it is actually encouraged. You can really grow this into something will hopefully be a really solid organizational policies and procedures. So we do want to see you grow it eventually, but what this guide is covering is just the minimum WAQRR standards that we need to see in it. And with that, we'll just give you some examples of some policies in the organizational writing guide, and then what it looks like written out.
Just an example here is just for example, the staff background check. Your requirement would be your policies requiring background checks for all staff and volunteers with direct, regular resident interaction. So anybody that comes in the home that's going to work with any of the individuals inside the residence. Your evaluation criteria was a background screening policy and procedure provided. So you guys, even send us a procedure that has something to do with the background check. Does it include a reasonable screening process for all employees, staff, and volunteers? And then your guidance for this policy would be detailed policy mandating background checks before staff and volunteers interact with residents regularly. Specify the process. So, criminal history check via third-party service. And then your results don't need submission to WAQRR. So once you submit a background check with any of your staff, you do not have to send it to us. It just has to stay on record for you guys. And then train staff to enforce this policy consistently.
Okay, so this is again what Kinsey just read, a policy that we do require in the organizational handbook and what is required within the application. This is some guidance on how to write it. We're gonna go into some more examples. So here is an example policy, and I'll let Sarah explain what we're doing here.
Yeah, so now we're going to kind of shift gears, and we're going to have some participation involved by you. So basically, I will read the standard. I'll give you folks an opportunity to read the white box, and then we will ask some questions just to check and make sure that this policy meets all the standards. So the staff background check policy pertains to WAQRR Quality Standard 2F. So it's a policy requiring background checks on all staff and volunteers with direct and regular interactions with residents. So I'll give you a moment here to just read the white box and then we will chat a little bit about it. So we'll give you about a minute to read this. Okay, so this policy, all staff and volunteers must undergo a background check before they can regularly interact with residents. This process is crucial to ensure the safety and well-being of our residents. Having a criminal history does not necessarily exclude you from employment. All right, so first question, did they provide a policy? So was a policy provided? Yes, they did provide a policy, so that can be checked off. Next question, does this policy require background checks on all staff and volunteers who directly interact with residents? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Leah. Does it include a reasonable screening process for all employees, staff, volunteers? What do you think? Feel free to raise your hand or pop it in the chat. Yeah, so this is a little vague. This staff background check policy is a little bit vague, although it does state that they have one in place. It doesn't really share how that's being conducted. Like, is it ran through Washington State Patrol? Like, kind of, you want to just make sure that you're elaborating as best as you can. You don't want to have any ambiguity, bleh, can't talk, with your staff. So, any questions on this?
Where does your
Yes.
house lead fall in this? Because they're not paid staff. So
Correct. Yeah.
do they fall in this category, needing a background check?
Well, they would be residents of your home, so that
Mhm.
is a little different if it's like an in-house house manager. If it's someone like from the outside coming in, yes, they would. That's a really good question.
Okay, that's what I thought, but thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to move on to the next example for a staff background check policy. All right. Again, this is in reference to quality standard 2F, so I'll give you a moment to read the policy in this white box. All right, so first question we would ask, is a policy provided? Yes. All right. Does the policy require background checks on all staff and volunteers who directly interact with your residents? And does it include a reasonable screening process for all employees or volunteers? And does this align with standard 2F of our WAQRR Quality Standards? All right, looks like everyone's pointing to yes. All right, great. So is the house lead considered a volunteer? Well, it depends if your house lead is a resident of your home. So if your house lead is someone that's not living in your home. Most do live in the home. They would be required to undergo a background check, but residents in themselves do not necessarily need to go through a background check. That's kind of left up to your discretion. So then in response to this background check, oh, sorry.
Sorry.
That's okay. So yeah, it does, the policy is provided. It does state that all volunteers employees are undergoing a background check. They even kind of took it a step further, saying that this organization will cover the cost of running those background checks and also asking for reference. So it's really up to you. They kind of went above and beyond what was stated in standard 2F. David asked a question for a type 2 or type M. That particular policy item is recommended, correct?
No, all of our policies and procedures are
These are
requirement.
required. Yeah, these are yeah, these are required.
So this is the one, sorry, I was reading the question. This one is one that we do require for level 2 to recovery residences.
Yeah. Yeah, good question. All right, and then our final background check policy example. All right, I'll go ahead and let you read the white box again, and we'll come back and chat about it. All right, so did they provide a policy? Yes, they did provide a policy. Does this policy require background checks on all staff and volunteers who directly interact with residents? Yep, I would say they do. Does it include a reasonable screening process for all employees or volunteers? Yes, and does it align with 2F of the standards? And it for sure does. It says how they run their background checks, when they will receive those results, who specifically from the organization is running the background checks. So yes, this one as well goes kind of above and beyond of meeting the quality standard 2F. Any questions on this? No. Okay,
For
next
this
slide.
policy, Sarah, David did ask another question that it says R on page 3. David, what page 3?
Yeah, what page?
He's talking about the quality standards because it lists which ones are recommended or required for the different levels of care.
Oh,
Totally
yeah,
get confusion. This is one that's like nationally it's recommended, but here in Washington, we're requiring it for our level 2 recovery residences. But that's a good point. We should actually go back and change that in the quality standard. That's really the only one that is deviating from what is on there as the recommended or required, showing the different levels. So just for clarity in that one. All right, now we're gonna turn to the resident intake and orientation packet guide. So again, when you receive this guide on page 4, you'll see a checklist of policies tailored for residents, like fees and charges, the house rules, medication policy, good neighbor policy, just to name a few. And these policies are all about making sure residents understand their responsibilities, understand their rights, understand what it's like to live in your recovery residence. And just like the organizational guide, each policy will have a policy name, a requirement, evaluation criteria, and guidance. And the focus here is really clarity, getting resident consent through signatures for the resident agreement portions, and just ensuring safety and clarity about what's expected of them. You really want to be clear so that there's no gray areas with your policy writing for the resident guide. So for example, the fees and charges policy tied to standard 3A will require you to list all possible fees like rent, late fees, deposits in a detailed schedule with exact amounts, not blanks. So residents will need to sign this to show that they understand, which then protects them and your organization. So this guide really emphasizes using simple language so that everyone can understand regardless of the reading level. And with that, we'll dive into some examples. So think, for the resident guide, these are all the policies that are resident facing that you will be giving to residents when they move in your home and even before that in the application process.
So just like the last one about background checks, I'll just kind of read through this, and so we get an idea of what the examples are going to look like. The requirement is prior to the initial acceptance of any funds, staff must inform applicants of all fees and charges for which they will be or could potentially be responsible for in writing with their resident signature line. So when you write, the rent is $700, it has to say $700. You can't just leave like a blank line for a fill-in later. Your evaluation criteria: was a fee and charges policy provided? Did they provide a fee schedule for all potential costs for services or charges that the residents are responsible for, as identified in policy? So this could be lock boxes, fines, late fees, administrative deposits, anything that the resident is responsible for. Are the amounts listed rather than left blank to fill out later? If a sliding fee scale is used to calculate resident payments, is it clear and able to be fairly applied? 5, does the policy agreement capture resident consent? So again, another signature line. And some guidance for this policy would be: include a detailed fee scheduled in the handbook, specify exact amounts, avoiding blanks for full transparency between you and your residents, and then ensure staff secure resident signatures at intake to confirm the understanding between you and your residents. Any questions?
All right, so the resident fees policy, this is standard 3A. So I'll read the standard. Again, always refer back to the quality standard when you're writing your policies. So this standard is: prior to the initial acceptance of any funds, staff must inform applicants of all fees and charges for which they will be or could potentially be responsible for. So we're going to take another moment and we're going to read just to ourselves what is in this white box, and we will collaborate as a group and discuss it. So go ahead and take about 1 minute to read this policy.
Give them like 2 minutes. Process it too.
Okay. So was a fees charged policy created? What do you think?
Yep, I'm looking at
Yeah.
them. So they submitted.
Was a fee schedule provided for additional costs that the resident could be responsible for? Yes. Are the amounts listed or are they left blank? So in the very beginning, they state that the housing fee is $950 and a late fee will incur.
And there is a separate policy around late fees
Mm-hmm.
as well that can be combined with the fees and policy.
Yeah. As well as refunds, like you can go more in depth with your refund policy if you will have one.
Did I say
Um,
late fee or did I say refund?
You said late fee.
Oh, so yeah, I meant refund.
Okay.
Doesn't matter if you have a late fee. Yeah, a refund policy that does go with it, as well as another policy around third-party payment. So those all kind of go together. You can lump them in the same policy if you like, or you can have them completely separate.
Yeah. And then does this policy capture resident consent? Yes, so it has a signature line, it has a date, they kind of went above and beyond. They have all the amounts filled out. They've put information if a resident is facing financial hardship and how they'll work with the resident. So they're pretty detailed in this policy. And especially, around financing and finances, it's really important to be crystal clear in your policy. So if a sliding fee scale is used, is it able to be fairly applied if applicable? So
Santiago, can you unmute and explain? Oh, sorry, there we counted in.
Is there a question?
He had typed, as we learned, it would be prudent to have language to cover homeowner if resident leaves damage to property when they leave, whether voluntary or involuntary.
That sounds like Santiago, you had a policy revision to
Recommendation.
your, yeah, put that in there.
Okay.
That's great. Okay, we'll go on to the next
okay,
one.
yep. Good to go. All right, so we'll take another minute or two and read this policy and we'll dive into it a little bit deeper. Okay, so was a fees charge policy created? Was a fee schedule provided for additional costs that the resident could be responsible for? Are the amounts listed rather than left blank or not detailed? Does the policy capture resident consent? And if a sliding fee scale is used, is it able to be applied? So they did not include the amount that rent would be. They left that blank, so that would not be in compliance with our standard. They did include what the late fee would be. They did not mention what the fine, the amount of the fine if someone does not do their chores. And they did not capture resident consent. So this would be a requirement on the document review report. So it'd require that the amount be completed and there's a signature line for residents to sign and consent.
And when you send you back the correction, the document corrections, it's pretty simple. It's just like, thank you for, submitting your resident policy, your resident fee policy. Below are just, a couple things that we still need, and it would be like a bullet point. Signature line was not here, and then another bullet point of please include what you're going to be charging for your monthly rent from your residents. And then we send that to you, we send it back with those changes, and then it becomes approved.
Yeah, so once you get your document review report, that'll be sent to you via email, and then you can just submit your document corrections just as email attachments. You don't necessarily need to go back into your application and re-access it to put it within your application. So,
do we feel okay? Do we want to do another one, or do you feel comfortable and understanding? I was gonna say, just because of where time's at, we could.
Yeah, we can move on
through this, but
is everyone under
what would be most
understanding?
helpful for the group? Do you want to do another one of these examples? Maybe thumbs up or yes, no?
Move on. Santiago said move on. Anyone have any questions? Move along. Okay, great. Yeah, so really just being, clear, concise, making sure all your costs are inputted is really important, and that you're capturing resident consent. Okay. So the policy development process, where to start? So beginning the policy development process, it can feel overwhelming at times. I mean, a lot of questions are bound to arise. Developing your policies, however, will create a clear path in operating your recovery residence. It can help alleviate a lot of confusion and really help you hone in on what you want to achieve. Like, what is your mission? These policies are meant to be a stable guiding light within your organization. So they not only help you really hone in on what you're looking to achieve with your recovery residents, but it's really, just being clear and concise and open and honest with your residents. Before getting started, please read the WAQRR Quality Standards on our website, along with the writing guides. Those are really, really there to help support you in this process with crafting your policies and procedures. And also familiarize yourself by watching previously recorded WAQRR webinars and just try to gather as much information as possible. The standards are specific and tell you exactly what WAQRR requires. The guides will assist you in breaking those down into policy requirements. So for step 2, you will utilize the checklist on page 4 of each guide to ensure you're covering all required policies. This will help keep you organized and on track. Step 3 is drafting your policies using the guidance provided. Follow the evaluation criteria to meet the standards and be sure to use clear, simple language. This is especially important for the resident handbook or resident forward-facing documents. And then in step 4, you will need to incorporate signature lines where required to capture resident consent. So by capturing resident consent, they agree they have read the terms of the policy and they're just signing off, making sure that they're fully aware and they understand to that policy. Step 5 requires you to review and revise your policies at least annually. So once you go through the accreditation process and receive your initial accreditation, there will be a yearly reaccreditation process. It's not as in-depth as the initial, but you'll really want to, go back to your policies and procedures from the beginning. So when you are in the beginning process of structuring your recovery residence, it is normal for your program to inevitably evolve. So updating your policies and procedures at least annually directs you back to the quality standards, resulting in a clear path forward. So for example, updating policies after specific incidents, like policy violations or major operational organizational changes, or even financial alterations. Maybe you changed your rent, maybe it went up, maybe it decreased. Yeah, so, and then final step is to formally submit your application. You've contained all your policies and procedures. The WAQRR application process allows you to see if you have included all the documentation required, and this process is really a roadmap to gaining your accreditation. So, Leah, can policies change after being accredited and before being reviewed? So, after you've been accredited, yes, you do want to submit when you go through the reaccreditation process after a year, just submit any policies that you've maybe adjusted over that year to us. Any questions?
Yeah, so Leah, as long as they don't stray from the quality standards, if you need to change certain specifics in it, we won't ask to see it until your renewal. But if it's something you're not quite sure if it will stray away from the standards, just reach out and ask or send it to us. We'll be happy to look it over and let you know. All right, now we're just going to briefly touch on just some best practices of writing your policies. Sarah touched on a lot of this already, but first, being clear, having clarity, especially in the resident guide, being consistent. Your policies should align with the quality standards and reflect the social model of recovery. So think peer support, community, a home-like environment, positive regard. Be transparent. So list exact fees and timelines, like rent is $500 a month or grievances are resolved within 7 days, instead of leaving blanks or being vague. Ensure visibility. So you're going to want to post the resident handbook and resident policies and the grievance policy in common areas so that everyone knows their expectations. So we do check for that during the site visit, that you have that posted, in addition to having them sign it and providing it for them. And then lastly, just train your staff to make sure that they know your policies. The organizational guide emphasizes ongoing staff training. So just making sure everyone knows how to apply these policies. And this is utilizing these guides will really help fast track your document review process, especially if you take your time on them and incorporate all the areas that we mentioned. Because that would equal less back and forth time we'd have to let you know which things need revised. So if you really take your time with this, you can really fast track that document review process. And then I'll pass it on to Kenzie to talk about next steps and resources.
Yeah, so our next steps and resources. So really just first go back and review, both the WAQRR policy writing guides and then the standards from the WAQRR website. That's kind of, going to be your foundation for moving forward in this process. Next, you're going to start drafting your policies. So use those standards, the checklists, the guides, the sample documents that we'll share with you, and then break it down into the manageable chunks. Keep it small, do things, in time. Don't overwhelm yourself because it can feel overwhelming. And like it's just a big step to keep moving forward. But like I said, if you just break it down into smaller chunks, your guys are gonna be fine. And then consult the WAQRR application for additional requirements. So those additional requirements are gonna be more like your insurance or the Secretary of State documents, resident application that won't be on that application that you guys will see. So just incorporate those and then move forward to reaching out to us if you guys feel stuck, need any support. We're always here for you. Again, we'll give you those emails at the end so you can ask us any questions, scheduling any of those TAs. Just don't feel alone in it, and just always reach out to us if you need. We're going to be here for you. And then that's kind of our ending, guys. So just, is there any questions you guys have or anything else you guys may need answered from us while you have us now? Oh, I lost my chat. Can you guys still see it?
Yeah, and another question sometimes that pops up is, well, how long does it take, from start to finish? How long does it take to gain accreditation? And that's really, that really depends on you, how motivated, you are to, gain your accreditation. There is some back and forth during the document review process, but I mean, we've seen folks get accredited typically around like 3 months. So, but yeah, really being prepared and taking your time is really key to gaining accreditation. So,
Yeah, 3 months is ideal. We put a max of from the time you submit your application to when we want the site visit completed, 6 months, because our accreditation process, we do annual reviews. So if you're staying in the accreditation process and kind of just at a holding point for that long, we might ask you to reapply depending on the situation. But definitely if it goes over 6 months, we will kind of have those conversations of what we can do to help support you.
wow, we managed to get out right on time.
Look at that.
Any questions, folks? Like Kenzie said, just feel free to shoot us an email. We're here for you. We don't want it to feel overwhelming. We're here to answer any questions and schedule technical assistance meetings with you. So, yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Right. That everyone have a really great day.
Yes. Thank you all. Thank you for coming.
Guys.
Thank you for your guys' time.
Yeah. Thank you. Take care.